GBH is for everyone. It's a place where we share stories, imagined.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
And experienced.
It's Shakespearean in a way.
And we have to tell its story.
A place to share home-tested recipes.
Just a thing of beauty.
And international flavors. A place to explore our storied past.
I just wanted people to know that I was there.
And uncover new history.
That's it.
Oh my gosh!
That's amazing.
A place where learning is encouraged and celebrated.
Break it down!
I like it. Team spirit.
A place to stay in the know. From your community,
We have to open up and talk about history.
To the wider world.
Everything in the history books happens here.
A place where creativity
I'm honored to be in this space.
Has a voice.
Together, we'll make beautiful music.
You can't keep a good idea down.
Who wrote that?
A place welcoming us for generations.
In the world of media, Ralph stands tall.
Because after all, it belongs to you.
This is a piece of history. Let's fight for it.
And everyone belongs here.
Good evening, everyone. To all of you here in person and joining us via Zoom, over 560 people at last count. My name is Renee Inamata, and I'm honored to serve as a GBH trustee, chair of GBH's Board of Advisors, and as a member of the AANHPI Event Planning Committee. I found that the creativity and generosity of GBH's boards and committees contribute to a wonderful sense of community, as seen here tonight. 8 months ahead of each May, the AANHPI committee and the GBH staff start brainstorming, hoping to honor our community with a fascinating, thoughtful, and joyful event, a very tall order. After much debate, this year someone asked very dreamily, could we possibly get Connie Chung? And as you can see, dreams do come true. Tonight's conversation with Connie is the first, actually, of two AANHPI events. Mark your calendars for May 8th, around noon, when our AANHPI committee will join forces with GBH Amplifies, GBH Forum Network, and World Channel for two important conversations at GBH's studios at the Boston Public Library. We'll focus on the contributions and challenges facing the AANHPI community in the greater Boston area, so stand by for more information soon. We all came to hear from Connie, but we also have another very important thing in common, an appreciation of GBH. Now, more than ever, your support of GBH and public media is crucial. You'll hear more at the end of the program about how you can help, but for now, let me turn it over to Liz Cheng, General Manager of GBH and World Channels, and the Executive Producer of Stories from the Stage. Liz?
Thanks so much, Renee. I know I say this every year, but thank you all for coming to this annual AANHPI family reunion here at GBH. So round of applause for all of you for coming. Thanks, so appreciate it. Let me say that this event would not be possible without people like Renee, our Board of Trustees, Board of Advisors, Advisors Council, Community Advisory Board, and most especially our AANHPI committee. Seen up here very shortly, you'll see their names. We're so grateful to their leadership and generous commitment to GBH and for all they do as ambassadors for our work. Special thanks to our event sponsors, Bernadine Song-Megason of Compass Real Estate. There you can see all our advisors up there. And now, And now to the main event. Like Connie Chung, our moderator, Susan Goldberg, has been a first numerous times in journalism, becoming the first ever female editor of the San Jose Mercury News and the Cleveland Plain Dealer, among many firsts in her career. Prior to joining GBH, she was the first ever woman editor-in-chief of National Geographic, the first since it began publishing in 1888. Yeah. As the first Asian American woman to co-anchor major newscasts, Connie Chung broke big stories here at home and in distant lands. She cared about getting it right. She was the scrappy reporter chasing down top news stories and the masterful journalist interviewing global leaders. For Asian American girls and boys and our ambitious parents, she was a beacon of possibility. With her trailblazing success in our back pocket, we knew we could make the team and score the winning goal. We could become class president, graduate from a top college, or become a news anchor, a CEO, concert pianist, earn that dream job. She inspired us. She gave us hope. And today, she joins us tonight.
Connie, thank you so much for being here. We are delighted that you are here.
Susan, I am thrilled to be with you because she has a rockin' career.
Wait a second.
Seriously, I mean, I read your biography, and then talking to you, my gosh, editor-in-chief, and and National Geographic, and she took it into a new realm.
No, really, nobody cares about me. They want to hear about you.
I'm telling you, she knows what she's doing, and she's been here under this for a couple of years. Yeah, but she.
Maybe I'll just go sit down.
It's pretty amazing to be up here with Susan Goldberg. Just very impressive.
Well, and it is amazing to be with you, Connie Chung. Thank you really so much. I had so much fun reading your book. This is the book. It is a really dishy read. I learned so much, and I want to talk to you a lot about that. But one of the things I read in here was how you say what I always say, which is, I look forward to the day when we no longer celebrate women's firsts.
Yes.
And you tell me why you say that.
Okay, because I want to hear your answer to that too. When Caitlin Clark hit more three-pointers than Pistol Pete Maravich, I thought, yes, because a basketball court is the same size, whether or not a woman, plays in women's basketball or men play in men's basketball. The court is the same size. A three-pointer is the same line, and she was hitting them way downtown, and she was able to do it. And it made me think, really, she was pretty darn incredible. And yet, when she joined the pro basketball, how much was she paid compared to the first draft male? It was just a pittance, and it just makes me say to myself, we're the first this and the first that, but I look forward to the day when there are seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths, and it's not such a big deal.
Exactly.
Now, you tell me why.
No, very similar. It's every time a woman gets a good job, it shouldn't be a national news story, right? It should be like a normal thing.
Yes.
Right, so that's why I always say it too. Mm-hmm. All right, but let's talk about a couple of your firsts. So, you were the first woman to co-anchor CBS Evening News, the first Asian American to anchor any news program on CBS, NBC, and ABC, and in many cases throughout your career, you were always like the youngest person in the room.
I was.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you look
Not
back,
anymore.
Well, I feel that way too. But so when you look back on it, does it just are you amazed that this has happened, or what are your feelings really looking back?
Yeah, my husband always said that I had a story to tell and that I had a remarkable career. Maury Povich, who's been determining the paternity of every child in America. Well, I can assure you he has a greater vocabulary than you are the father, and you are not the father. He's a political buff and a history buff, and he's actually starting a podcast. So, and his first interview is me.
Well, he chose well.
So he told me that I had a story to tell.
Okay.
And I said, I don't actually, and I don't know how to write a book, because television, as you know, is unlike when you were editor of the San Jose Mercury Press, is what it's news, San Jose Mercury News. It's not even like, newspapers. Television, what you write is that long, and what you write for newspapers is longer. But a book was beyond my comprehension. But he kept saying, do it. And you know what? I asked him, what was your favorite memoir? And it was Katharine Graham's Personal History, which I'm sure you've read.
It is actually my favorite as well.
Really? Mm-hmm. Yes. She won a Pulitzer Prize. She was the editor, she was the publisher of the Washington Post. And she was a lone woman, and she had a lot of ups and downs. And I figured one of the reasons why I loved it, too, was because she was never woe is me. She didn't cry in her soup. And I always felt that there's no crying in baseball. We don't run to the ladies' room. I'm sorry, we do not do that. We're tougher than that. So when I wrote the book, that's what I modeled my ups and downs, that I modeled them after Kay Graham's approach.
Well, and you tell this amazing story of a lot of ups and downs, and I feel like I've learned so much about the ups and some of the downs. And yet when I was watching you on television all those years, it was so smooth. It was like nothing bad was ever happening. And behind the scenes, you find out, all this turmoil. How did you pull that off?
They always said, when you're doing the news on television, try to think that you're talking to your mother. You're telling your mother what happened that day. And so I would focus in on that. Okay. I was not focusing in on all my mishigas, which was, all this stuff that was driving me crazy behind the scenes. But I would go home. Maury was actually my big foundation, my stalwart support. I would come home with what I called a resting bitch face, and he would say, "Do I have to remove all the sharp objects from the kitchen?" And I'd say, "Yes." And he said, "You have to lock the windows too, because I just may jump." So it was so fortunate that he was there to say, and this was his mantra, don't take whatever so-and-so said to you seriously. Don't take anything but your work seriously. Don't take yourself seriously. Just get the work done, because you know how to do it. And I didn't always know how to do it, but I learned how to do it.
Well, and clearly we'll go through some of that, but I want to go back a little further. You talk in the book a lot about your upbringing and your family. It's an incredible story of their immigration to the United States in the 40s. So you're the youngest of 5 sisters, the only one of your sisters to actually be born here. And one of the things that struck me reading your book was how your father urged you to find a way to make the Chung name memorable, so people through history would remember that. Can you talk a little bit about how your heritage sort of helped drive your success?
It's crazy that he did, but they had 9 children in China, 5 of whom were boys, and 5 died because infant mortality was quite common. Because my parents were born in the early 90s. So, 1900s. 1909, my father was born. In 1911, my mother was born. So they, had these 9 children. 5 of them died. 3 of them were boys. And in China, that's all you want. You want boys. You don't want any girls. This is, apocryphal in many ways. But you would put the girl in a bag, throw some rocks in the bag, and toss them in the river, because they do not carry on the family name, and which is true in many cultures. And so they were crushed that their 3 boys died. And when I came along, I was yet another girl, the 10th child. And there was, my father wrote me a note when I was already, he had this propensity to type on his manual typewriter and talk about his history, about the family history, and things, just things that he wanted to put down on paper and have us, the sisters, keep in for posterity. And one of them, he said, maybe you can carry on the family name and tell how we came to the United States, or how they came to the United States, and you can chisel the name Chung in history. And basically, I took it to mean to be the son
To be the
that
boy
they
of
never
be the boy of the family.
So I took on that kind of role when I got into the news business in many ways, because all I saw around me were men, right? All you had around you were men.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Well, all right. So as the youngest in your family, you did undergo this transformation, and maybe it was part of your effort to be a boy. You wrote that you morphed from, and I'm going to read from your book, you had no voice at home, never uttered a peep at school, never raised a hand to answer a teacher's question, into someone who was fearless, ambitious, driven, full of chutzpah and moxie, who spoke up to get what she wanted. Okay, how did you do that?
Okay.
I want to know.
Well, when my sisters, they were all older, and when they finally, they lived in an era where women got married and had children, so they moved out, and suddenly, because they were so bossy, I discovered that I had a voice, And when I was going to school, I was so timid and so shy. But then I got involved in student government. And when I was in student government, I had to speak. So I found my voice over the years in school. But I really, and when I decided to go into journalism, I realized that all I saw were men around me. The other reporters were all men. Whoops. Oh my God, I'm not getting undressed. You would hate it if I did. Sorry.
This is very exciting. I actually think one of the things that actually strikes me in your book is your ability to come up with these quips really fast under really amazing circumstances, and I think we just saw this live action thing. All right.
You wouldn't want me to take off my clothes. or my makeup. You want to see something really scary?
Oh, stop.
Okay. So when I got into the newsroom, I discovered that there were all men, maybe one woman, and all the competitors that I was working, trying to get a story from them, the other reporters, both in print and television, were men. And everybody I covered on Capitol Hill, this is all in Washington, on Capitol Hill, at the State Department, at the Pentagon, they were all men.
Actually, we've got a photo from right around then in the Oval Office with President Nixon. This is 1971. Okay, so there you are, and nice skirt length. Okay, anyway.
But I didn't look like a hooker, did I?
No. It was the time. But all right, so tell me what is happening in this photo.
I'm actually, obviously I'm 78. I don't have a memory anymore. I don't know exactly why they're all looking at me, even him, even Nixon. And he must have said something that caused them all to look at me. But this was endemic of what it was like.
Well, I think that picture, it doesn't even really matter. It just speaks 1,000 words, right? Just that picture alone. So the challenges of being a woman and being young, you actually open the book with this great line, I didn't start out wanting to be a guy, but everywhere there were guys, and the guys were successful and making it. And yet they also had something that you didn't want to catch, big shot-itis.
Yes,
so
it's a disease.
tell me a little bit about, the big shot-itis issue for you.
I found that that men, not that there's anything wrong with being a man, had this propensity to contract this disease called big shot-itis, and it was a inability to stop talking, to this unrelenting hubris, this a swelling of the head, and I found that women anchormen and men anchormen were the ones who really got it severely. The women got only mild cases, and the men. The one characteristic that I felt was particularly egregious was they had delusions of sexual prowess, which is so true of men in power.
Well, you write a little bit about that, and you name names.
I did.
You did.
I did. I mean, I think that there are times when you do need to name names. There are other times that it's a little inappropriate. But I decided that being appropriate was not what I was going to do.
All right, so we're here in the 70s, and not that long after that picture was taken during Watergate, you were talking about how you were, walking the halls of the Capitol looking for your own deep throat so you could compete against the Post. You were, stalking Bob Haldeman at his church. You were going on these high-speed car chases after people to get them to talk to you. What?
She's good.
What? Well,
she remembers all this stuff.
I read the book.
You
Okay.
did.
So what drove you?
Precisely that. I was driven. I was totally driven to be a good reporter. And
we're going to talk about this picture. So this is from the impeachment hearings, the congressional impeachment hearings. And once again, there you are, all by yourself.
And it's just, I call this one the sea of men, because they're just all men around me. And I look like I'm, and I don't remember feeling that way. But what this Capitol Hill photographer took it, and he gave me the photograph, and it became, someone put it on Twitter, and
recently you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And it became, it went viral. It became what the kids call #mood, and and apparently #mood means I have so been there. I know how she feels, and I walk into my workplace and I see the same thing even today. And so I related to that so well, because I thought, surely things have changed here and there, but there's still not a level of parity.
Well, no, but look, you, after reading this book, I already sort of knew this anyway, but after reading this book, I now know for sure, you are the hardest working person I have. I've never seen anything like it. You tell one story in there how you were essentially splitting 6 hours of sleep, right? You're going to 3 hours of sleep, and then you go back on the air, and then you go back to sleep for 3 more hours, and then go in at 2:30 in the morning so you could be ready for this early show. How did you do that?
Well, I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I decided I really needed to, I had gone to local news from CBS News, Network News, and then I went back to national news, and I wanted to make sure that the national viewers knew I was back on the radar. So I was on when you had breakfast, I was on when you had dinner, and I was on before you went to sleep at 11 o'clock.
Okay, so this sort of gets back to staking out Bob Haldeman at church, and what drove you to do that? I mean, lots of people work hard, but this is something else.
This is really nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I think it was kind of a Chinese thing. You know, Chinese people are so dedicated and to whatever they intend to do. I mean, and there's this dutifulness too, in which we're so incredibly dedicated to do what we think we should be doing. It's sort of the whole education thing, you know, try to make the best grades and all that stuff. Not that I did. I was a pretty good slacker. I clawed my way through school in many ways, but I actually was so driven. Later on, when I wasn't working, you know, Barbara Walters said to me, "What happened to your drive?" Isn't that interesting? Because she had drive all the way to the end.
Yes.
And she, but I think in many ways she kind of regretted not carving out a better personal life. But I modeled myself after her in many ways.
Well, let's talk for a second about that. She was fascinating, died really not all that long ago, was a true trailblazer.
She really was the one.
So how did you all get along?
Well, you know what? When I wasn't working at the same network, she was amazing. She'd write Barbara notes, you know, Barbaragrams, and that was a great interview, or I saw you do this and everything, even if I competed against her for an interview. But as soon as I got to ABC News and was working side by side, I was so scared. She was tough. And she and Diane Sawyer, were battling it out, and I was. They were really going at each other, and I had to duck from the crossfire. Pew!
And you were kind of put in between.
Yes, yeah. And I thought I was going to show up at ABC. It would be a triumvirate of three women fighting Peter Jennings and Ted Koppel, and you know we would really take them on, but Barbara and Diane were fighting each other. Yeah. And I got to get out of here. You know, I'm not going to compete with them for what they are competing about. So I just went for other stories. It was brutal. But I respected Barbara. Yeah. And when she wanted to do something, I always acquiesced. I was being sent for ABC for the Millennial to cover the change, you know, the year 2000, and in Paris at the Eiffel Tower. And I said, "Oh, Maury." And he said, "We'll take the whole family." And so he made reservations, and we were going with, he has two older daughters who are my daughters, and then we had a son. By the way, I forgot to get married for really a long time, and then I forgot to have a baby. So then,
all right, we'll get to that.
Okay, we adopted a baby. So here we are. We're all set to go to Paris. The vice president of news at ABC came to me and said, "Connie, Barbara wants to go to Paris." And I went, "Okay, where am I going?" And he said, "Las Vegas."
Not the same.
No.
Not the same. Even though they have a tower there too.
They
but
do.
Not the
it's
same.
a little tower.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah, been
All
there,
right.
done that.
All
It's like, yeah.
Now, there's so much to cover, and that is so fascinating about your career. But I want to talk about May 14th, 1993, and you write in the book, "It was the best day of my professional life." What was that day?
I was named co-anchor of the CBS Evening News. I was the first woman, and I'd always wanted to be Walter Cronkite, you know, "Good evening."
That was good.
Thank you. He was my idol. He was a nice man. He did not suffer big shot-itis, and he was always nice to me. He wasn't sexist or anything. And I adored Walter. So to be actually sitting in half his chair was amazing. But unfortunately, Dan Rather didn't want to move over a few inches. He wanted to have the whole chair. And so it was a rough and tumble situation for 2 years. But just like Barbara Walters, who co-anchored with Harry Reisner years before. Who despised her. Dan rather despised me and my presence there. And so 2 years later, I too was dumped.
But do you ever talk to him now?
You know, I ran into him on a train, and he said, "Let's talk." And I went, "Oh, God." So we're sitting there, and he said, "No hard feelings." And I'm saying to myself, "Are you kidding me?"
Right. And you said, "Read my chapter." Right, yeah.
Read my lips.
All right, that's amazing. All right, so I want to talk about some of the battles you faced. It seemed to me like journalistic issues. So you wanted to cover serious journalism, all kinds of major global stories.
I wanted to be you. I wanted to do. You were always doing serious stuff.
Well, okay, we'll talk about that later. But but you weren't always given that opportunity, and sometimes you got assigned to the First Lady stories, which is fine, but that was what you got, or sort of these sex-driven talker kind of stories.
Yes.
And you actually wrote you were
stories that my husband would cover.
Okay. But you wrote, "I knew this kind of tawdry play for ratings would hurt my career, my inability to extricate myself from the sex blather set in motion a perception that tarnished my reputation for all the years that followed." So looking back, like, how should you have handled it? I saw you had kind of a struggle between wanting to say, "Hey, no way," and trying to be a good colleague and employee.
Well, honestly, I think it was kind of the Chinese thing. I was when a male boss, and they were all male, I mean, there just weren't any women, would tell me, "You got to do this because nobody else is going to do this. You got to do it for the team." I was too dutiful. I would say, "I don't really want to do it." I try to put my foot down, but then they'd suck me in, and I'd have to do it. And I should have been tougher. I mean, because I was tough, and yet I could not say no to the big boss. It was really hard because they would say, "You're the only one." And then they'd throw things at me like, "Barbara's getting this, Katie's getting this, Diane's getting this. We need you to do it because 60 Minutes won't touch it." Mike Wallace and all the boys would not touch these tawdry stories. And as soon as I did, they'd get great ratings, and it was the curse.
So you were like punished by your own success in a way.
In many ways, yes. It was the killer was the rating success, because all the networks transformed from being dedicated to news to dedicated to the bottom line. And as soon as that occurred, the paradigm changed, and it was not unlike the greed of the 60s, the decade of greed. Everyone wanted to make money, and so the ownership of many of the networks turned over from William Paley was the one who created CBS in many ways, and he had always said to the news division, "You cover the news. Doesn't matter how much it costs. You cover the news because the entertainment division, which he was number one at CBS, they'll make the money for me." He said, "Jack Benny will make the money. I Love Lucy will make the money.
And you spend the money, right?
Yeah, all these old programs that you young people have never heard of made the money.
Right.
And he could allow the news division to be autonomous. And we covered the news.
But that whole bottom line mentality has really, really changed, and we're seeing it to this point today.
And I am terribly. I watched the hearings regarding PBS, and I was horrified of what I saw. And I know I shouldn't get political, but I can tell you that Trump is spending so much time, instead of with Melania, he's spending so much time with Musk, they're calling him Elania.
I had not heard that one. All right. Let me quickly change the subject.
Sorry. I think you better.
All right. So this is like a softball. What was your toughest interview and what was your favorite interview?
I would say my toughest interview was actually during Watergate when I ran into Nixon on the White House grounds. I was coming back from lunch because I was supposed to keep the seat warm for Dan Rather because I don't know what he was doing. And I came back and I see him standing just outside the West Wing. And I'm coming up the driveway, and it's in the thick of Watergate. He's been in the bunker. He won't come out because he knows he's in big trouble. And so I walked up, and I started peppering him with questions. And it was, did you do this? Did you do that? And I didn't want to take out my pad and
Right.
pen because I was afraid that would scare him away. And the Secret Service were already freaked that I was talking to him. So then, all of a sudden, he says to me, "How much money do you make?"
And did you tell him?
Yes, I said $27,000, and if I do a piece for Walter Cronkite, I get an extra $35, and if I do a radio spot, I get an extra $25, and I can get my salary up to $29,000 a year. And he looked at me and said, "Just remember one thing, you have to make more money."
Wow.
I don't say, what the?
Well, that was not a story that you could do. You had an exclusive, but
exactly.
no story.
And when Helen Thomas, the dean of the White House press corps, said, "What did he say? What did he say?" I said, "Helen, I don't think he said anything."
All right, so that's tough. What was your favorite?
My favorite was actually interviewing Magic Johnson after he announced that he was HIV positive. The great Magic Johnson. He was such a wonderful person, and everyone was so devastated when he had to retire from the Lakers because he was HIV positive. He was great.
Michigan State grad, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Right.
You got it. And I remember going to his house. I got the interview because anybody who knew him thought we were his best friend. And it's because he was just so friendly. He made everyone feel as if, he was our friend. But I did go with him one time with him and his very tall friends to Maurice's Snack and Chat. And we had chicken and waffles. And it was so good.
Well, and that interview made a big difference because it allowed people in the middle of the AIDS crisis to really start looking at this issue in a different way.
Yes, it was. It was significant because he came out, he was honest, he was sincere, and he opened people's eyes to AIDS, and thank goodness. To this day, he's a good person. He hasn't really contracted AIDS.
Right.
Thanks to him, medical research has found all sorts of ways to deal with it. So I really loved interviewing. He took me into his house, and he had extremely large furniture. It was the most amazing thing. I was like, do you remember how Lily Tomlin used to play Edith Ann?
Her feet dangling.
Yeah, that was me.
Well, all right. So we're going to look at a film clip in a minute, but let me just set this up for a second. So you were named after the actress Constance Moore by your older sisters, and you didn't know until fairly recently the impact of your name, Connie, on a whole generation of other women. I had read, it was in 2023, and I happened to read this story in the New York Times, done by Constance Wang, who noticed one day how many Asian American women were named Connie.
May I tell you how she contacted me and told
Yes,
me?
please tell me.
She goes by Connie, and her last name is Wang, W-A-N-G. And she came from communist China with her parents. They settled in the Midwest. She was only 3. And they said, we need to, her parents said, we need to give you an American name. And she only knew she was only 3. And she only knew what she saw on television. She said, Connie or Elmo. And fortunately, they chose the human instead of the Muppet.
Much better.
Yeah.
Much better. Well,
and so what she did was she wrote this article.
It's an amazing story, and it was headlined, Growing Up, I thought being named after Connie Chung made me unique. Mm-hmm. Not so much. All right, let's watch the clip, and then let's talk about it.
Because I went to the New York Times studio because the photo editor wanted to gather Connies and put me in the middle.
All of these many Connies. Okay, let's watch.
Hi, it's so good to see you. Hi, Connie. Hi. It's nice to meet you. Finally, yeah. What is your last name? Armaki. Armaki. Okay. My last name's Cheng, actually.
Get out.
My last name is Connie Chung Armaki, so I really do like you.
You're Connie Wang. And you pronounce it Wang?
I actually named myself after you.
You did?
Not my parents. I did.
You mean just in your crib? No, how did you do that?
Because you're iconic person.
Oh my God.
I admire female.
Oh my God, I know me too. Really?
Yeah.
How old were you when you named
After
me?
college, I wanted to have some American name, and I didn't want to have Esther, so yeah, I had to learn. So.
Oh my God. No, you're really my deal.
Relax.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
For you.
This is amazing. This is amazing. Oh my God. It's confusing why your name Connie. You know, when I was raised when I was born, you know, but I realized what it means is, you know, your parents want you to work hard and like be brave and take chances. Yeah. I did do that. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Oh. It's too much. It's just too much. Hi, Jackie. How are you? Who needs what? Oh my gosh.
So, it's such a beautiful clip, and one of the things that is so striking is yes, it's about those young women, but really, it's more likely about those young women's parents.
Yes.
And what they saw.
Yes.
And what do you take from this?
I'm really flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. It just blew me away. My husband always said, "You're the Jackie Robinson of news," and I go, "Nah, Maury, I don't believe what you're saying." And now I believe him because this is a living legacy that is just remarkable. I can't believe it. And I've met more Connies on my book tour. I've met. They keep coming up and saying, I'm Connie Chung. I even met a Connie Chung in drag. And he said it takes him 3 hours to get the makeup on. I said, dude, it takes me 15 minutes. And may I tell you one more thing?
Yes, please.
I have one other thing named after me that I think I'm very, very proud of it.
I think we might have a picture of this. Let's see.
You do? Oh, really?
Yes, I believe we do.
Oh.
What? Why, Connie? What's that?
It's a rest stop off the New Jersey. So, actually, the Garden State Freeway. So, if you need to take a whiz, you can go to the Connie Chung rest stop. It's pretty amazing. I haven't been yet. Maury went. And,
it looks incredibly fancy.
Yeah,
I mean, this is like a high-class rest stop.
I don't think so. No, I mean, it's just...
Are you trying that again?
I am. I don't know why this keeps... Anyway, I think it has a Burger King, and I actually prefer McDonald's.
All right.
But anyway, there's one other thing.
Yes.
Susan, may I?
Yes, yes.
I have a strain of weed named after me. I don't know how it happened.
Can I Google this?
You can.
Oh, okay.
And if you Google it, you can get a 5-pack pre-roll for only $22. And I think that sounds pretty good.
I will plead innocent.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm easy to grow. And I create a beautiful flower. And I don't give you the crazies that much.
Did you inhale?
Not like Clinton.
Okay.
I did inhale. Yeah, Clinton obviously claimed he didn't. That's ridiculous. But the one part that I love, and I'm sure you're the same, I'm low maintenance.
Oh, the plant.
Yeah, the plant.
Oh, totally.
The plant.
Oh, yeah. I think that is excellent. All right. Well, I want to get the audience into this. We had asked for some questions in advance from the audience, and these are fantastic questions. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Veronica from Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania says or asks, do you still feel pressure or a sense of responsibility to reflect a certain image of an Asian professional woman?
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, I it's not so much I'm that is the Asian woman thing. It's being appropriate. I have the worst potty mouth, and I am a sassy badass, and I can't curb my enthusiasm. I have to be really careful.
Do you think you got that from trying to be one of the guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, clearly. I felt like it was incredibly important for me to just throw caution to the wind at the time, and I had their bravado. I used their kind of language. I lowered my voice as much as I could to be more like them, and I had so convinced myself that I was just another white guy. When I'd walk past a mirror or a storefront, I'd go, "She's a Chinese woman is staring back at me."
Well, so that's probably not, I'm just guessing, the image that most Asian professional women have of themselves.
Yes.
All right.
And that's, I would say, to Asian women, don't fit into the stereotype that they are expecting of you. When something is funny, don't go, go ha ha. Har har har. Just come out of your shell.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Catherine from Hopkinton, Massachusetts asks, what mantra do you live by that serves as your rock in tough times?
When the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. No, when I would get depressed, honestly, Susan, I would, it was really hard. I'd either go home to Maury and he'd talk me off the ledge, or I would say, I can't wear the same thing on the news every night. I think I'll have to go shopping. And it would just turn my mood around. And I said, okay, and it was my excuse. It could be a business expense because, it was for work.
I'll talk to our CFO about that. I'm kidding. All right. Kathy from Boston says, who are your role models today?
Good question.
I know, these are really good.
Yeah. Susan Goldberg.
Har, har, har.
No, but I think and I find that I would like some woman to step forward and become president of the United States. Actually, you know.
Do you think we'll see that happen?
You know, it's looking so grim at the moment because everything is taking a gigantic reversal in our progress, not only for women but minorities. Everything is topsy-turvy. That I feel I try to be optimistic, but it's I'm worried to death. I'm worried about the Fourth Estate. I'm worried about how we can survive these next few years. And I know I shouldn't be partisan, but I'm truly worried about journalism and how partisan it has become. There is no better time for us as journalists than to speak truth to power. And so it's always been our responsibility to call the federal government accountable for things that the federal government is doing wrong. And there are so many things to investigate. So I'm hoping that all these great investigative reporters that we still have and are still reporting will be able to bring everything to light. Thank goodness for Jeffrey Goldberg, who accidentally was unwittingly on a Signal chat. I mean, he was the only one who was concerned about national security, and it's remarkable.
Well, so this isn't one of our audience questions. It's really mine. So how do you think that we media can regain trust? Because as you know, trust has fallen since really the 80s or 90s. It's been in this inexorable decline. How do you think that we could do that?
It's been a terrible slippery slope. Well, I think it's actually through local news. My husband actually started a newspaper in Montana, of all places, and it's called a Flathead Beacon, and it is now online because newspapers have such a hard time; they're bleeding. But so he went online. It has won every single journalism award that you can imagine, and I think. And it's beloved by the community. It's credible, honest. It's trustworthy. It's all those old-fashioned, wonderful things that when we started in news, that's the way it was. It was normal, standard procedure, and so I think if little by little, local news can infiltrate national news and the national climate, we might be able to slowly regain the trust of the American people, because now I completely understand why we aren't trusted, because we're not reliable. We don't give facts. And I do blame digital media for a lot of the misrepresentations and the lack of accuracy, because they just publish anything.
Well, you know, maybe it's also a little bit of that phenomenon. People don't like Congress, but they like their congressperson often, right? So that familiarity helps, right? And that could help with local news. Okay, good, good, excellent. All right, let me get back to these questions because they are excellent here. Now you didn't you cleverly did not name a role model. I just want to say this for the record.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
you don't have to. All right.
Okay, I don't know.
You can come back. We'll come back to it maybe at the end. All right. Here's a very good question from Alice from Newton. If you were starting out today, what would you do differently?
I might not have worn 4-inch heels because I ruined my feet.
But you were trying to be eye to eye with the guys,
Yeah, I
right?
was. I started out 5'3", but now I've shrunk so much it's ridiculous. But I didn't want to be looking up to them, you know. So I made sure that I was close to eye to eye. I don't know what I would do differently. I think I would try not to be so naive. I was pretty naive, but I couldn't help it because I grew up in a very cloistered home, very, very Chinese. We spoke Chinese at home. We ate Chinese food. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's really good. But we grew up very Americanized too. I mean, we played Monopoly and Parcheesi, but we also played Mahjong. We listened to Sinatra and Doris Day and all these, popular singers of the time. But we also went to Chinese opera. So it was a very Chinese upbringing, and we. So I think that I ended up very naive until I started really working. And then I saw the underbelly of society. And when you go out and cover, other countries, the poverty in Bangladesh, or go to Russia or whatever, your eyes open up and you begin to learn a lot.
So one thing you'd mentioned when we were talking earlier, and I didn't get a chance to get back to, was you said, I think, something like, you forgot to get married and then you forgot to have children. Is that obviously you did neither, really, but is that something that you would do differently?
Oh, you know what? For me, it was the right way. Yeah. It just turned out to be perfect for me. I'm sure it's not for everybody, but I had a long career. I was dumped at this from my dream job, CBS Evening News, and then 2 days later, I was given offered a consolation prize of, still a really good job at CBS, but 2 days after I was dumped, we had been working on an adoption for about more than 2 years. It came through, and I decided, boy, this is serendipity. It was meant to be. One of my sisters said, uttered that wonderful cliche, one door closes and another door opens. One door closes and another door opens. And so there we were. Just a couple weeks later, our son was less than a day old, and he was in our arms. And it was just unbelievable.
So the timing then turned out perfect.
Yes, it was. And then I stayed home for a long time, and it was really great. I think he's a good guy. He's now engaged, and I really love his fiancée. She's a no drama gal, and you can't beat that.
That's wonderful. All right, so I really want to wrap up again on family. So you write so much about your father in this book, and it's a complicated relationship over time, right? I mean, you supported your family from the time you were 26 years old. You felt like just obligated really to do that, and they really depended on you as well. But if your father was here tonight, what do you think he would say about you, Connie Chung, the famous Connie Chung?
Oh, wow. Nobody's ever asked me that.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he was always very proud, extremely proud. And he never knew that I got to sit in half of Walter Cronkite's chair. And he probably would have been over the moon at that alone. But my parents were actually tough on Maury. When we got married, I asked Maury, I wanted to call his parents mom and dad, so we went up to them and said, Maria said, Connie would like to call you Mom and Dad. They said, of course. And so then we went to my parents, particularly my mother, who was especially tough, and said, Maria said, I'll call you anything, shall I call you Mom or Mother or, whatever. And she said, I prefer you call me Mrs. Chung.
No, is that for real?
Yes.
And
it
he
is.
did then?
Yeah, the poor guy had to call Mr. Chung and Mrs. Chung until the day they died. So, I don't know, they were not always, nice.
But they would have been, I'm sure, incredibly proud.
Proud. Very proud. I mean, they were, even when I, was just a reporter. Yeah. They were already running around telling everybody, Connie's on television.
Well, and who could blame them for being proud? Well, I could talk with you all night, but thank you so much, Connie Chung, for being with us
Susan.
here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate us. So, yes, please join me in thanking Connie.
Thank you.
And I think we can exit.
Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're getting a standing ovation.